So two things. One, I'll do it in the order. So a lot of people know about it. It's been around for years now. SSK for Corona, which is my personal library of this, that, and the other thing to help you write your games and apps, has languished for a long time. In fact, if you have visited my GitHub, you'll have seen for a long time that it is empty. And it used to point you to a copy that I was not maintaining. So I didn't maintain the public release of SSK for at least a year now. I'm getting ready to re-release it. Among the other things that it's going to have in it, it's going to have a brand new sampler, which I'll show you in a second. And I mentioned earlier this year, I believe, that I was going to release it and I was going to do docs. And I found that I started to write up detailed documents and remembered how much I hated writing documentation. So what I'm doing is there is going to be a cheat sheet for this, which is just what it sounds like. It's just a short review of the different features. It's a 3-page cheat sheet so far of the core features in SSK, and I know it's probably really hard to read on the screen here. You're going to have to download it and print it out. But it talks about all the major core elements, the math library, the extensions, and so on.
You know, that really puts a fine point on it. Looking at just those 3 pages of the cheat sheet, how much work you've put into this library.
This is just the core features too. There's a bunch of features in here not documented in the cheat sheet. They are advanced features that need more than a cheat sheet to describe. But these are the base features. So the biggest feature you're going to see in here is the object builders. I've got complete replacements. Actually, I was going to show that to you. And a complete button slider library if you don't want to use the widgets library.
And you're re-releasing that, and that's going to be available when?
I'm going to re-release it today. I'm gonna do the first release today, and then it will continue to be updated. So and the way you'll know which version you've got is it comes with a sampler, so you can just download this stuff for free. And the new sampler is much nicer than the old one. Right now it only lists 43 samples. That number will grow. The sampler is organized into currently 5 categories. One, which I call the Ask Ed, and what this is a collection of all the things where I've answered questions in the forums, and slowly but surely I will convert them over to the sampler so that people can get them all in one place and run them and examine them and see the code. Many of these let me just run you through the features here. So this top button, and I may change the organization of this for navigation because there's getting to be quite a few samplers or samples to go through, and this is starting to become an inefficient method of going through it. So what may end up being here is a scroll list, so you can select the individual example. Regardless, Ask Ed, Core will always be demonstrations of features that are in the library itself. Many of these will come with videos, like this one does not, but the button down here will be enabled, and if it is, you click it, it'll take you to YouTube. There'll be a little video that talks about how to use it. Almost all of them will have a details page where you can read a little bit more about that feature, what I'm trying to show you in the demo or the sample. And then of course you can run them. And this is a very simple example of a comparison. So what you see here on the top, every one of these objects was made with 1 line of code, whereas each of these individual objects down here were made with 1 line, 2 line, or up to 4 lines of code to do the same thing. Not that impressive. Let's move on to something a little more interesting. So there's physics example, very simple physics. This example on the left took 2 lines of SSK to produce and 9 lines of traditional Corona code on the right to get the same functionality. Still not that impressive. Interesting Newton's cradle example, done in 17 lines of code, SSK of course. And an example of one of my favorite tools, which is the collision calculator. The collision calculator is basically It's a module for lazy people. I don't like to do the collision calculations because, you do them, you get them all figured out, you do the math. The math is not hard. But then you make a change, and then you forget to update one of your calculations somewhere, and then you're like, why is this not working? Well, right, I got sick of doing that, so I wrote a little module that you just basically give names to the different kinds of colliders, like enemy bullet, and then you can use those names to set up your collisions when you generate your objects or create your objects. And to give an example, hopefully you can see this. These are two examples do the exact same thing. The one on the left, 14 lines, and all the collision settings are auto-calculated. This one on the right, 37 lines of traditional Corona code, and 10 lines of hand-calculated collisions that you've got to maintain as you modify this and make changes and add features. Whereas with this, you just add another collider type if you need one, change some of the associated rules on a single line of code, and you're done.
And the other thing that we've had this discussion before is that you like to keep things so that they're kind of autonomous, right? So that they're independent of each other and they don't have to be interconnected. So those lines of code that you're talking about, they're tapping into modules that are kind of, I don't know, separate from the, like they're separate from the inline code. Whereas the other Corona code that you're talking about is sort of inline code. Is that correct? Am I making sense?
So one, like the example that I showed you on the right, was a bunch of discrete lines of code. Now, I'm counting discrete lines, but you have to create an object. You have to store it in a variable temporarily. You need to change some parameters. It's just like this, all these things that you can lose track of. Whereas with SSK, it's the more you want, you just do it in one line of code. You use a little shorthand notation, that meaningful shorthand notation in the creation line. I could show you a line of code in a moment to demonstrate this, but it's just compact.
Okay.
And it all lives within. I have a complete replacement library for the Corona, new image rect, sprites, everything.
I think that's one of the things I always liked about looking at your code is that it's always kind of like this logical flow. You don't get bogged down in the options for a button or all of the. There's not like this block of code where it's like, okay, here's the block of code to create a button, but that's if you're reading through it, you really just want to read through and say, okay, first I initialize this, and then I create a button, and then the way that you approach it is. It seems it's much more simple to understand.
It's still linearly in that order, but it's all in one line. What I call one line of code. You may press return and like put it on more than one line with a comma or something, but it's basically one line of code, very easy to read and go, yeah, the fill color is going to be red, the rotation is going to be 45 degrees, I'm adding a body, it's going to be a fixed rotation, or it's going to be a static body. It's all nice and compact.
Right.
So another example here, so one more core. So this another favorite example of mine. Each of these lines is one line of code with and fed into that line of code is a list of points. So basically it's a animated, it's in a loop. The list of points changes every time and it's fed into the builder which draws these lines. It may be a bit hard to see in this. So moving on, another feature that's going to be in here is demos. Demos will be, what I'll do is, in the one that you download, the demos feature will not be there for the most part. There may be a few, and those will be free modules that you can use. But there will also be a downloadable APK for Android users, and I'm working out a system for distributing the iOS version of this, which will have many more demos. And these demos will demonstrate products of mine, solutions. For example, I have a module called Easy Positioner, which is it's a drop-in module that you just use in your code, and what it allows you to do is attach a one-liner to each object in your scene, and then you can position them with your mouse, or if you're working on the computer in the simulator, with your keyboard. Things like snapping, etc., etc. There's a bunch of just shorthand notation or short keyboard shortcuts for positioning things, and then you can get the details of like where things are and the rotation right out of this little header up here. just because people are always looking for easy ways to position things that are like, wow, let's see, put it at 100. Nope, that's wrong. Move it up by 1 pixel. Nope, that's wrong. So don't do that anymore. You can just use this.
Is it corner aware?
Sir?
Is it corner aware so you can offset it from the corner?
Yes, it is. It's got
Oh.
it's got the option to a number of options. Yeah, to position it relative to anchor points or corners or a number of things. I'm still working out how to display this little widget here at the top to give you all that detail without getting in your way. So let's see. Okay, so that will be a bunch of modules that I'm going to be selling and giving away depending on which one it is. The next thing that I'm really excited about is what I call game guts. And so we've been doing this on the show here, the I Can Make That series here on the Hangout. And now we're sort of getting more into game guts, which is where I consider where we're not looking at the full game, we're just doing a little piece of it. So I'm also going to be doing a bunch of these that you'll be able to download and play, and then if you see that that's interesting, you'll be able to go get it for like $1 or $2 or $3 and see how it was implemented. And one of those that we're doing today is jigsaw puzzles. So this is, we're not going to do quite this today. This is a more advanced 6-piece jigsaw, so advanced, demonstrating another principle. And we're running out of time here. I haven't even started this. Sorry. So just, I'm also going to do breakdowns of different games that you see out there, like Ketchup's games, Don't Touch the Spikes. This is a 300-line example that shows you how to implement this, of course, using SSK. Here, I wanted to show this. I was going to make the announcement today, too. People who don't know this, and I was told it's okay to say it on the Hangout, is that the desktop version of Corona is out there. You just have to know how to run it. Now, whether or not I'll tell you how to run it, you just dig around in your installation directory and you'll figure out how to run it. But you can run, and I'm not going to do it right now, full screen or part screen, resizable desktop apps using Corona. So you can make a desktop app with Corona on the Windows system. Now you can do it on OS 10 also, but it's different from the way this is implemented. So only Windows for now. I'm only talking about Windows. This is another example that I made that I'm not quite ready to release. It shows a new kind of puzzle. So what I've done here is it's what I call puzzles in motion. As you can see, it's a puzzle of a sort, not very complex, where you're supposed to figure out how these things are connected, and the bits and pieces in the puzzle are moving to make it more complicated to do this puzzle. So hopefully the principle is clear.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah, and that demo is just not working correctly. Let's see. And then mechanics, which is sort of like, I may collapse this into the Ask Ed stuff because it's like people ask really interesting questions, and I haven't decided what to do with them all. One we saw previously was the Lazy Man's 2.5D isometric, not really truly isometric, but this concept, right? Of how do I get this an easy layering system in here where I can get it to look like things are in front and behind. Okay, so I should probably stop talking about this, and I think that's it. Yeah, so we talked about the cheat sheet, sampler, all this stuff will be coming out today, and then I'll figure out oh yeah, if you're listening on the show and you want to get in early on the iOS release of the sampler, the one that's going to have all the good stuff in it that'll get updated over time so you can see more and more stuff, email me at roaminggamer@gmail.com and send me your email address, the one that you would use for your iTunes account, and then I will email you an invitation to download the sampler when I get it ready for your Apple device.